This has been shipped all the way from the US from Woodpecker. So it's the first time I've actually had something shipped from the US. Normally I get the stuff in the US. But effectively, this is everything I've always wanted from Woodpecker, but couldn't fit in a suitcase. We've got some long woodworking rules, big T-square, which again couldn't fit in suitcase. The story stick, quite excited for that. But the main stuff is a new router table. So we've got a new router table, a new router table fence, and a new router table lift. Oh, and actually most excitedly, that's not a word, most excitingly is, because this was out of stock when I was going to order it, now it came back in stock, is the Woodpecker mug. So that's exciting. They don't actually do, if Woodpecker actually watch this, they don't actually do much merch. I think this mug is one of the very few things they do. So we'll have to find that somewhere. Better be in here. So first box in our Woodpecker haul that we've had shipped here. Don't know what's in this box. Could be the mug. It's quite an exciting mug that is actually. Look at that. It's quite a heavy mug actually. Woodpeckers, got the logo on it and a couple of their classic squares. But feel how heavy that is. Do you think you'd be able to drink tea out of that? We didn't lift it.
I can't.
You can't film and lift. Okay. Take my word for it. It's well made. Okay, box one. Box two. Oh, I'm going to move this over here because I'd be very upset if I damaged that. Right, box two. Ooh, this is one of Woodpecker's most popular tools, which is their T-square. My limit of getting stuff into a suitcase was probably actually the length of this aluminium that I cut hacksawed to get into the suitcase. This is a Vicarian suitcase. 550 millimeters. Anyway, so as you can see, just a bit longer than what I can get a suitcase. So I actually wanted this for a while, so when I was going to get something shipped anyway, I added this in. So this is, as always with Woodpecker, super accurate T-square. So very good for laying out material, keeps it nice and square to any material that you're doing. So very well made as always. So that is their 600 mil. It says 600 mil, but actually it goes up to actually about 618 millimeters. So, and as always with a lot of Woodpecker tools, it's got the holes in the middle for the 1 mil graduation. So if you've got a fine or a mechanical pencil, you can again put your pencil in that and run it through if you want to describe a line. So next up we have got the longest rule. I don't know if that's a US thing, whether I'd normally call that a ruler, but this is a rule. Maybe it is meant to be called a rule. Is it like math and maths? Rule and ruler? I don't know. Anyway, it's a piece of metal with markings on it. So this is the longest rule that they do. This one is 900 millimeters. So obviously with T-squares or regular squares, they're always hooked onto something. This you can lay flat on any piece of material. So if I was doing a lot of markings out, big sheet material, this is obviously very useful because it's extremely long. So I can do lots of different markings and measurings. This is also a fully metric, but this is a 2-in-1. So I think they have this on a lot of their rules, which is it's a 2-in-1. So we've got a left to right scale. So this side goes from 0 to 600 millimeters, but then on the other side, if I rotate it around, this side is a center scale. So basically 0 is here, and it spans out. So did I say 600 before? I meant 900. So go 0 out to 450, left to right, and 0 out to 450. So if I had a particular mark I want to work from, to do some equal spacings, I could line it up on the 0, and then if I wanted to do 200 mil this way and 200 mil that way, it's very easy to do that. So that's quite a handy feature of these rules. So that's that one. And then as they were on a good price, because as with squares, and the same for rules, you can never have too many rules. So this is the 900 mil. I guess I said 600 before, and this is the 600 one. Same as the other one, left to right and centre. So that's that one. And in case you were wondering, I do have another rule already in stock that I got a long time ago. So now we've got ruler friends. I already had a 300 one. So that completes those rulers. So next up, I think we've got, yes, we've got the Story Stick Pro 96 inches. Which, according to Alexa, which I just asked, is just a hair over 2.4 meters. So this is actually, again, something else I've wanted for quite a few years. So what this is, as always, it's typically when it's Woodpecker, it's some kind of measuring, laying out device. More packaging. Fixings, quite a lot in this one. Okay. So what have we got here? First up, we have a thing. Absolutely no idea what it is. It's red, it's plastic. It says Woodpeckers on it. Then, what have we got in here? These are some sort of laying out devices. What do they call them? They call them standard tabs and offset tabs. And this is called an end stop. It says with knob. We haven't found the knob yet. I do like to tidy as I go, if that wasn't clear. So, we've got 3 individual metal aluminium extrusions. Each of them are around, they're all the same, probably around 800 mil. That one's 840 mil, 810 mil, and yes, 810 mil. So the idea of it is a story stick is basically a way of you repeating something. Now, a story stick could be something small, it could be something big, it could be something rudimentary. For example, find a pencil. Didn't tidy this up, did we? So, pencil. By the way, I don't know if I've pointed this out before. This is the Festool MFT table, and as with everything now, you can get a lot of stuff 3D printed. This, I think I got this from Etsy. Someone 3D printed something to slot in, so you can basically store stuff here. So, story stick, I presume coming from when people actually just use a stick of wood, which people still do. So if I wanted to create a reference stick, I could just put, let's say, a marking here, and a marking here. And if let's say I had 4 of these tables and I wanted to make a repetitive mark, I would just line it up at the end, make my mark, and then I go to the next table and do the same. So it's just a way of repeating, aka story, across multiple different things. So as you can imagine, lots of different ways that you could use that. This takes the system to a whole new, obviously accurate level. So if I was laying out something repetitive on a full 8x4 sheet of MDF or something like that, or if I was doing something on a big cabinet doors, marking out for hinges, shelf positions, etc. I could obviously use a tape, mark that all out, repeat it over again, but that obviously does rely on memory, and there's a bit of margin for error here. So with this, you can effectively connect all 3 of these together if you want to. So in full story mode, you can create a full 2.4 meter length. So let's imagine you can do that. And I won't show you it all now. Maybe I'll set this up in a bit to show you. But basically, with all these different tabs and connectors, see if I can find a small one. these tabs will effectively slot into here, and allows you to, and there's some locking nuts. So basically you've got a bunch of these that you can put in. So I could say, if I wanted a mark at, I need to see actually if you'd mark these on the left or the right, but you basically set one, let's say you set one at 1,000 millimeters in here, I might want to set one at 1,300, 1,400, etc. Whatever I want to do, decide it, lock all these nuts, and then everything is set up. I can repeat it, and you can put the end stop on here. Is that the end stop? Yeah. So obviously if you wanted to start it on the same top or bottom, you've got the end stop. Everything is set up, and then you can make all your marks on lots of different sheets of material. So that's a very high level view of what it does, but I will set it up a bit later and show you it fully in action. Yeah. So we've set up the story stick. I've just done 2 sections for now, just as I'm on this table. So we're currently in 1.62 meter mode. And to join it, there's just some track connectors, which you just tighten with an Allen key. But I mean, it's very similar to if you're joining pieces of track for a plunge saw. So there's obviously another 2 to join the other section. So I just loosely lock those off in the spare piece when I need it, so I don't lose it. So, give you a quick demo. So we've got the end. Let's put that in first. So the end, there's a bit of gap here, so that basically you can put this in. Okay, mate. So this, you can actually get the thing in. There we go. So that will set to 0. So this is now a locked reference point. So now I can butt that against my sheet material, or table as I've got here. So that's locked in at 0. So the system comes with a variety of different connectors, and you can buy more if you want more. It comes with 4 what they call offset and 4 standard tabs. I think these were the original ones when they had the first version of the system. This is the 2nd generation, so I'm glad I waited. So I'll explain what these are for. So offset tab, this allows you to use the system at any point largely in the sheet material because it steps down. So if I just flip these in so you can see. Also in setting this up, you can make cool sound effects with this. So I'll put it on here and I can, whee! No, not exciting. I'll probably just do this to myself when I'm setting it up. No, just me. One more. So we're set up. We've got 3 in here. So now we can make up our imaginary story. So let's say that we want to mark something at 300 mil increments. Can set that 300, lock that off. Set the next one at 600 and 900. So we'll just do 3 for now. So very easy to do. Now, one observation, and I think I saw maybe another company who does a similar system, and I think they may have a similar offset tab, and their marking is in the middle. So you know that is the center. Now you effectively can use either side of this. Now I've set it to mark on the right hand side, which is 300 mil. So if I make my markings 300, 600 and 900. Now obviously when I come to do it in a different position, I do need to remember that I'm using the right side, not the left side. So that's just a point of note. But this does give you a bit more flexibility. There may be certain scenarios where for space reasons or if something's in your way, you might need to use either side of it. So a bit of flexibility, but do not forget which side to do. So as you can see, because this steps down, it means I can rest this flat on my sheet and I can put it anywhere. So, you know, if you're doing a mass production, or even if I'm doing something of my own, on a smaller production, even doing something across 3 or 4 different doors, sheets, this is very easy to set up and get repeatable cuts. So that is the offset tabs. So we can flick these off now with my patented noise. Try the next ones. So next up, I'm going to show you the other set of tabs, standard tabs. Now these, if you notice, I've also got a piece of skirting here just to demonstrate this. So these ones also slot in, also make the same noise when you put them in. Just put 2 in for now. So lock these off. Now I'll also show you actually a mistake I made when I set this up, when I was quite disappointed. I'll come back to that. So there may be certain scenarios where you cannot put the story stick on the actual sheet material itself and use the offset tabs. So if you look at this one now, I'm sitting on the material. I've got a very different set of tab, not touching the surface. These standard tabs is where you are resting the guide, or the story stick, rather, sorry, alongside the material, like so. And now you can see it is resting, and this is where the standard tabs come in. So similarly, I can now make my mark because I've got it resting aside. Now, if you're laying out material in your workshop, probably wouldn't need to use these, because even in the offset tab, you can reach close to here if you had it slightly set back from the edge, because they reach down on both sides. Where this actually will be used quite a lot is if you can imagine, probably more in the vertical orientation, if you're marking, for example, the side of a cabinet and you can't, for whatever reason, get this inside your cabinet, you might need to rest it alongside it. So you might actually have a cabinet. If you're marking for hinges, if you imagine this is your, do it this way around, imagine this is the side of your wardrobe. If you'd already fitted your wardrobe, you might not be able to get that in, so you might be resting alongside it. Obviously you probably wouldn't have the stop on, and you're doing it flush on. So different set of tabs to work in a different scenario. So that is quite useful. Now I'll show you where, just in case you made the same mistake as me. So when you come to set it up, this tab, everything comes in pieces. So you just get the plastic tab, and then you've got the nuts and bolts. So I just put the nuts and bolts in, not realising it was anything particularly to it. So I'll show you this. So I initially put this in and screwed it in nice and tight, fine, and then kind of realised, well, why is it, how is it actually kind of lining it up on a mark? So let's say I picked 400, lined it up, fine, but then actually I can, why is there so much? And I was kind of thinking, well, that's, is that gonna, am I going to have to get a square out to make sure it is square? And I was kind of thinking, well, luckily I do have several woodpecker squares, so if that's what I have to do, I have to do. And then realised the mistake. So take this back out. If I show you in this one, this is the same tab. If I lock this off, now it's tight, there is no moving that. That is locked in. It sets itself square. Now the reason is, if I show you this, and it's obvious if you think about it, but I didn't particularly realise. If you look at this, it actually has a top and a bottom. While it looks very similar, there is a little rebated or a little guide here. This side is flat, this side has a little guide. And what that guide actually does, it sits in this T-track groove. So here, you can see it nestles in here and it is locked in. Whereas if I turn it over, it's obviously not locked in. So I basically just had to undo it and put the bolt all the way around. So don't make that mistake and get disappointed like I do. Final thing, and I'll show you this on the other piece of track. So next up is the final tab. I've already put this on, spared you the ordeal of my noises. So slightly a different one, this one. Not sure how often I'll use this, but it came with a kit. So this effectively allows you to take the measurement, and you don't really even need to do what you're marking, but you could basically, if you imagine this is the inside of a cabinet, drawer or something where you want to take the internal measurement, you can effectively line it up one side and then slide this till it touches the other side of your cabinet. Lock that off. So there could be scenarios where for whatever reason you can't get your tape measure in, or there's some other reason. So now we've set this to be the side of our cabinet, and now we can bring it out and we can do one of two things. We can just take a tape measure to this and read our measurement, which is 407 millimeters. And if we're doing something with a table saw, we could then set that up, or tracks, or whatever we're doing. Or even simpler, now this is all set up, we can actually, if you follow me, go over to the table saw, line one side against the fence, and then one side against the blade, making sure you're just on a tooth. And now we know that is exactly the inside of that cabinet that we mocked up. So whether we're cutting a shelf or something else, we know that is exactly the measurement that we need, and I can lock that off. And that's set up to make a repeatable cut. So not sure how often I'd use that. Is there many scenarios where you need to make an internal measurement that you can't get a tape measure to? Possibly. Two of them comes with it as part of the kit. So that is the full kit. And as you can imagine, you can use just one of these tracks. You can use 2, 3 together. You've got the end stop with or without. You can lay it on sheet material. You can lay it on the edge. So a lot of possibilities and a good little kit to have. So unsurprisingly, a couple more layout rules left. Just when you thought, could there not be any more measuring tools? Yes, there is. So I got a couple of these. Now with most Woodpecker tools, depending on what it is, they typically have anywhere from 1 variant to 6 variants. As you saw with the rulers, all typically differing in the length. So I often, if I'm not quite sure how useful something will be, I will buy the smallest, cheapest one. So for example, this one is the smallest one. It's 150 millimeters. So this one was probably only $10, $15. So very cheap. But if I find it useful and I like it, maybe I'll buy a longer version in the future. Typically what I do with Woodpecker tools. So it's quite good that they have different sizes. This one is called the hex scale rule. Now, I think traditionally a hex scale ruler is often used on kind of traditional drafting tables where you've got different scales of measurements. There's only one set of scales. I think they called it hex scale as it refers to the shape that used to be, because you can flip it around and there are different graduations on it, but they're all the same scale. So what this has, basically, it's an all-in-one tool. The end of it is the reference stop. This side we've got, because depending on what you're doing, for example, on a table saw, you might be working more actually right to left than left to right, because the fence is typically on the right and you might be measuring from the fence to the blade. So, which is why they have right to left. So we've got on the right 0 to 150, and then on this side we've got left to right 0 to 150. And then similar to the ones, we've also got a center scale. So we've got 0 in the middle to 75, 0 to 75. And then all of the same also in inches. Not that I use inches that often. So we'll see if this comes in handy. Quite useful to have different measurements on it. And it also comes with, which often they do on the smaller ones, it comes with a stop. So I can set that, if I wanted to do something repeatable, I can put that anywhere and set it. If I wanted to set it, let's say 60 mil in, for example, on that one. I can lock that off, and then I can lock it in here. So see how we get on with that. And the next one is what they call their Fathead hook rule. So this is, and I've got one of their smaller ones. Actually, you stole this from me. I did have to get it back from you. This is their smallest kind of flexible skinny ruler. So it's quite actually a nice one just to have about, more if you're kind of working off a piece of paper, for example, than some wood. So it's quite thin and flexible. But it's got a more of a sturdy head on it, kind of like a mini T-square, really. I presume that's called the Fathead. So it allows you to hook onto something. And then the last two things before we move on to router table is, I think I mentioned earlier, so with a lot of their measuring tools, some of them come bundled with what they call a racket. So racket is how you hang stuff on a wall. So this is, yeah, this is the one for the T-square. This one came part of the price actually. So I'll just quickly show you. Screw this to the wall and then you can nicely hang it on there. So you can, do you think that would go in the living room or the hallway? I'd actually, it would be nice if we walked into the house and the hallway just had various tools hanging out. I'd quite like that. And then the last one, which is actually the Fathead racket. I didn't realise. So with some of the rackets, now this one's actually got did that one have a sticker on? This one's got a bit of a sticker on. I would say actually, I'm normally quite positive with a Woodpecker, but this is just a sticker, and I'm afraid it has not. For a company that prides itself in having everything square, that sticker is not straight. So I would say that's slightly disappointing. Woodpeckers. I'm sure they won't mind me saying that because it is just a sticker, but still. So I got this for the Fathead racket, and turns out, so some of them, they will do a racket that basically supports all variants of the tool. So they wouldn't do one just for this. Sometimes they do. This one is to support all variants of the Fathead. So when I said earlier I wasn't sure, I would assume then that they do 3 different lengths of the Fathead racket. So if I was to put that on the wall and to do that, maybe it's a marketing ploy. It's kind of now encouraging me to complete what hangs on that.
Your Fathead rack.
My Fathead rack. So I probably won't put that on the wall for now. Again, if I found that useful, I may. And again, this one was pretty cheap. I think it was actually pretty cheap, $10–15 again, I think. If I find that useful, I might get a longer one. So there we go. So I hope you liked that selection of woodpecker tools that I just got. If you've got any yourself, let me know if you've got any tips on them, or if you've got any questions for me about them, let me know. And stay tuned for the router table ones that we'll do very shortly. Very excited for those. So yes, please subscribe if you like what you've seen.